Hi everyone, and welcome to the Phileas Club. This is episode 90 for June 2017, and it's called Armchair Psychologizing. Excellent title. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Phileas Club. My name is Patrick Beja, and today we're having a regular episode, which means we're getting people from different countries, different places in the world, and we talk about the things that have been happening in the past month or so, and hopefully we give everyone a slightly different angles, views on the news topics. That's what we endeavor to do anyway. Just a quick word before we start. There's a bunch of stuff that happened in Saudi Arabia, and I was really looking forward to hearing Turkey's opinions on things, but unfortunately he didn't feel well and couldn't come on the show. So sadly we won't. I know a lot of people were probably expecting to hear from him, but yeah, sorry, he's not here. And we will forever have a dark curtain and box over what happened there in Saudi Arabia. But we still have a wonderful panel to talk about the things that are happening in the world. First, Wendy Dunford is here from Sweden. How's it going, Wendy?
Hi, good.
You
Hello,
are
everybody.
So you're representing Sweden and a little bit of America, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been in Sweden now? You're
3
almost
years.
not American anymore.
I know. I forgot almost everything. No, I 3 years. Yeah.
So when do they take
That's
your passport back?
They are so generous. They'll just give me a Swedish passport if I would stay here 5 years. So
That's
it's
very
not the
nice.
other way around. They're not America.
Wait, are you actually considering it, or?
I don't know. We'll have to see. So you have to live here 5 years as sort of a registered resident, and then you have the option to get citizenship, which is pretty amazing.
So
Yeah.
you heard it here first. Wendy Dunford quitting her American origins and roots and betraying her country. That's what
don't
you
tell
get
my family,
when you
okay?
have
Okay.
when you have bleeding heart liberals, and that's you see the true colors. There you go. All right, thanks for being on the show, Wendy. Thankfully, we have a real red-blooded American on the show to balance out Wendy's traitorship. And that's Owen, who's back on the show after a wonderful episode after the election of Donald Trump a few months ago. How's it going, sir?
I think my blood's green. I don't think it really, I don't plan on having my blood being shown to the world, so the oxygen's not going to hit it. So the red-blooded Americanizing of your statement is incorrect, but I'm still happy to be here while we figure out what color my blood truly is.
That's the important thing that we want to know about. But yeah, no, thank you very much for being on, Owen. I'm very glad to be able to ask you a few questions about what's happening in your country. And I'm sure the answers will be very interesting. I'm hoping so anyway.
My answers are always wrong, but they're definitely mine. I cannot act as a speaking voice for everybody, but they should think like me if they were smart.
Yeah,
safe.
I tend to agree. I usually, when I go about my day, when I'm faced with a question, I try to think, what would Owen do? And usually the answer that I get is the right one. So thank you for providing us with that on the show as well. And finally, Marlene is back from the Netherlands with the burning question. Not only how's the heat wave going, but also, do you finally have a government? And we'll have an answer to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll have some answer to the question at least.
Yeah, we'll have answers to all of these. And I'm going to be able to talk about the heat wave and the government question for France as well. And there's some shenanigans happening in Finland too. Like, it seems like every political environment is being, I don't know, there's weird things happening everywhere. But I guess the first thing we have to kind of talk about, it's the heat wave that's completely devastating Europe. And some people are saying, it's global warming. Some people are saying, no, that's normal variations. That's not how you look at this. But yeah, I just wanted to mention it because it's basically what anyone can talk about on Twitter and anywhere else if you're in Central Europe. Thankfully, I stayed true to my French roots, unlike others, and I cut and run and fled to Finland, where it's raining and depressingly cold. So I'm not suffering from that heat wave. But you were saying, Marlene, that you had to get baths of ice basically to stay alive.
No. I'm really lucky. I have a really old house, but it's a couple of floors. So the lower floor is super cool, which is awesome. And then we sleep in like the top floor. And it gets really hot there. No, I mean, if those are the biggest complaints, let's be honest, we're really lucky.
Right. We're going to get to other questions in a little bit, which are going to be more controversial. But we don't have I was going to say hair conditioning. We have hair conditioning. We don't have air conditioning, which I'm sure the Americans would be really outraged about. If they were here.
What?
Yeah, we don't.
Exactly.
We don't. We have old houses, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't have window units or any what?
No, we don't.
I've never seen a window unit that actually made me want to look at my own house. So nope.
Wow. It will probably cost you about $800 to get one sent to you freight. But for the love of Jiminy Christmas, if it's that hot, a window unit would save your life. Like you don't have air conditioning? I'd quit that country ASAP. I'm upset. As a black man and as an overweight person, I feel sad for you in my heart. I'm about to send you air conditioner right now.
I'm sorry. I should have told you one more thing about the Dutch. We love to complain. So we should have, it's all either too hot or it's too cold. That's how we do it.
Yeah, but when it's too cold, we have
dying
heating,
from heat stroke. Like,
that's actually a big question because we have a lot of elderly people, as most countries do. And last time, it was 10 years ago, we had such a big heat wave, and in France, it was a huge problem. Like a lot of elderly actually died because they weren't being cared for appropriately. Now, hopefully, we took the steps to remedy that. But air conditioning or hair conditioning could help in those cases. So
we have our national heat plan is currently active, which basically boils down to, quite literally, please take care of the people who are not super fit. That's what it means.
Okay.
Keep an eye out.
I know it's like stuff, but let me just tell you something. This is how important air conditioning is. I could teach you in 5 minutes how to make a portable from home air conditioning. You get a styrofoam cooler, you punch 2 holes in it, you fill it with ice, and then you put a fan on the top of it, and it draws the evaporating air out. It'll cool a bedroom down to like 65 degrees in 20 minutes. Like, what is going on that you guys don't have air? I'm sorry.
Well, Owen, there's a major problem. There's no styrofoam here, and there's no ice.
Also, there's no space. Do you have any idea how small old houses are in Europe? There's no space, honey.
It takes up the size of a small suitcase. A small suitcase can cool your room for the night. You can breathe. I'm really upset about this. I don't know why we're talking about this. We need to talk about something else. This is ridiculous.
I sense that Owen is getting a little bit emotional about all of this.
So sad.
I think we're going to move on to another somewhat, less important story. But at the same time, I'm very curious to hear how upset that will make Owen and possibly everyone. Last time we spoke on the show, President Trump had just been elected. And if I remember correctly, you were firmly in the camp of, I don't care for either of the candidates. I think they're both as bad as, each other. And basically, I don't really mind that Trump was elected because I think Clinton would have been just as bad. Is that a okay characterization of your mindset at the time?
Exactamundo. It's like Godzilla and Mothra fighting in the city. Who cares? They're both going to destroy the city.
All right. So then my question now is, one that I've been waiting a long time to ask, months. After everything we've seen, after everything, it's a trivial example, but Trump going to play golf like on the taxpayer's dime for weekends on end after criticizing basically everything he does. You can find the tweet from the past 5 years where he vehemently criticizes everything, and not to mention, the healthcare bill that is being discussed in secret when they were criticizing this, when the Democrats were doing it like much more openly, and the Russian ties that we've seen and the nepotism that is rampant, although, some people might claim that he's just getting people to run his administration like he would in his family business, quote unquote. All right. A lot of things have been happening. Without going over all of it, are you still in the same mindset? Do you still think things would have been just as bad with a Clinton presidency?
I think you did go over it. I think you covered everything. And surprisingly enough for you, I will say I am very pleased with this administration. I am very pleased with Donald Trump, the United States of America. I still think that it still would have been the same if Hillary would have been the president, except for one caveat. One caveat is she would have been more sneaky and savvy and not let you notice she was trying to destroy the world and take over everything and fill her pockets and make her family an oligarchy, as opposed to the doofus that just does it openly and plainly and doesn't care. Let me just tell you something real quick about how great America is and how great our president is right now. So for a long time, people are okay with the status quo of government and how things work. And they think, oh, well, shucks, I know some people are oppressed. I know some places don't get funded. I know inner cities don't get this and equal justice. Well, when you have it so blatant and across the board where it affects every race and nationality and sex, it makes everybody get off their butt and stop saying, oh, well, it's okay, because now it's not okay for anybody. So now the country is, quote unquote, woken up, except for the people that slumber in the hills and mountains in Doofusville in the South. Everyone else is woken up. They're going out to things politically, and they're arguing about stuff. The town halls are getting shut down because Republicans are scared. I mean, it is a great day in America. I am so proud of 45 for uniting so many people together and getting them off their butt and angering them and showing them that, hey, yes, schools are important. So he's undercutting schools. Well, now you actually know what the school budget is. Now you actually pay attention to what the school budget is. You didn't know what it was for the last 10, 8, 12 years. But now you know, and you're thinking, oh, my goodness, he's going to cut that in half? We didn't have nothing to begin with. So I am personally actually happy about the job that 45 has done to stir up the nation and show everybody what's going on in politics. Because normally they hide behind a curtain and everybody thinks it's hunky-dory, and it's not. But he's so stupid, he does it in plain sight. So I'm grateful.
So basically, okay, so you would have been afraid that if Clinton had passed, it would have been business as usual, but now we're seeing all the mess. And so do you feel that people are actually getting more active politically because some of the blunders that both of the parties would do are more visible with 45? I feel like calling him 45 has a sense of like he who should not be named. But
I'll break it down really simply for you. I have two friends. One that's 37. He has 3 children. He smokes weed every day. He does construction, smokes weed every day. I've known him since high school. I've never once heard him say a word about any president, any election, any vote, any budget, any bill. He's tagging me and stuff, calling me about stuff every other week. Did you know that blah, blah, blah? Ever since Trump was elected, now all of a sudden he's informed. His kids are 10, 8, and 3. He hasn't given a crap about education, bills, budgets, nothing. Guess what? Now his pothead self knows about everything. I have another friend, exact same way. Dude's out here drinking. All he does is go to the bar and chase women. He's out here talking about, did you hear about the war budget, the school budget? I'm like, why are you talking about budgets? You should be talking about Hennessy. So that's how I know that this administration has woken up people that have been asleep for decades. People with children that never gave a hoot and or Annie, and now they're paying attention. So, yeah.
Okay, America. America. We were joking before we started recording that basically the answer to everything is America, and it works. I think it works.
No air conditioning, America.
So before I go to Wendy, because I want to hear her thoughts about this as well, but what do you hope will happen, in the midterm elections and maybe in the next election, because the, awakening to, and let's put aside, some of the diehard supporters of the current administration. I say diehard because I think every poll shows that the support of President Trump is lower than any presidency has ever seen, or very close to the lowest we've ever seen. So I think it's fair to say they're not seeing a lot of confidence from the people. But let's put that aside, which could be a whole entire conversation by itself. Let's put that aside for a second. What is your hope for what will happen in the next elections? Because if the Democrats are just as bad, or maybe it was just Clinton, what's the way out?
So without Clinton, it's going to be easier for the Democrats to get the House and the Congress back. And that's the first step. Hopefully, that all switches and we get power back there. And then we can go forward. If that doesn't happen, then everything I just said is moot, because even though people are paying more attention, that means they're not going out to vote. Because right now, with his, see what I'm saying? His approval rating is so low that even people who didn't care about politics don't like this guy now. People who never would ever paid attention to it are like, yo, this isn't right. So right now we need to get the lower branches of government swaying back to Democratic side. I'm an independent. I really don't like any of them. Like, even the people you end up liking are just scumbags and doing horrible deals. Like, Cory Booker is like some savior of grace, and then he goes and says, oh, no cheap medication from Canada. We can't do that. We don't know if Canada's medicine is regulated. And we're like, they all come from the same factories and get shipped all over the world. What are you talking about? But again, he took a lot of money from pharmaceutical companies and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, it's rough to say who's going to do what, but we need Democrats because they're a little bit better than these Looney Tune Republicans right now, for the most part.
Okay. Wendy, what do you think about all of this, and maybe your feelings on after 6 months of the Trump presidency?
Well, I totally agree with Owen.
Really?
I think.
So, are you actually thinking this is maybe the hard but necessary wake up call to the nation?
Well, I do think that Clinton would not have been able to do. First of all, to be honest, I think her gender would have created lots of fun things for a long time. I think similarly to Obama, I think the vitriol towards him was not as simple as he talked like a professor, right? I mean, it was a different. It had an impact that I think was part of the boiling up to this moment. I think the same thing would have happened with Clinton. I think it would have kept going, and then I think we would have had a Trump after her, some version of that. So it feels like it was going to happen inevitably. And Trump is a symptom, not necessarily the thing that started any of this. So I agree with him that either side is not trustworthy. Both sides are compromised continually. I think, let's talk about campaign finance reform. We should have done that 100 years ago. So there's no way to pull all this apart and have it be the system. I think that it could be, that would be amazing. Unfortunately. However, I have to say, it's really nice to live outside of America at the moment. And there's a reason. As I read a lot, I pay attention to what's happening. I have done this thing. I'm center, little to the left, but I have read Fox News every single day, in addition to many other sources, and I am astounded. It's like watching Family Feud. It's he said, she said, over and over, and name calling, and everybody's doing it. I mean, it just feels like it's a bunch of preschoolers fighting on a playground when you step back from it. And obviously it has real life consequences, and on some level it's terrifying, but yet it is really interesting. Now, is the system corrupt in and of itself? Is anyone who gets to be a president got to be pretty corrupt to be there in the first place? Yeah, probably. I mean, all of that is a thing. Sorry, someone's phone is shooting off in the background. I know,
we're
right?
Doing the show.
Come on, this is world peace we're talking about. So anyway, yeah. But it really has been, and so I'm a psychologist. I don't know if you've ever announced that, but it is really fun to armchair psychologize. That's a word, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, if it's not, we'll make it one.
It is. It's a word. Trump from afar. It's interesting. I have more empathy for the guy than you would suspect. I think maybe because it's so public, this kind of not knowing what he's doing. And the game that is politics, the man does not know how to do. And I feel like he's kind of the crazy uncle at Thanksgiving dinner that's just going to get on Twitter and ruin everything, get a little drunk and say everything wrong.
The way we look at it, I think it would be funny or sad or both if he wasn't the president. That's, I think, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Again, just sorry to interrupt, but one, I like that someone who's a doctor is agreeing with me, a fake doctor. Secondly, the biggest thing is the empathy thing. I don't feel sorry for a grown man that is basically a con artist. You every time you think he's a buffoon, think of the way that this man has failed up in his life. His things that he says are just distractions for dumb people to jump on board and go along with because they're dumb. And that's how he's failed. His book should have been called The Art of the Con. He is a con artist. He is a professional con artist. So even when you think he's making a mistake, really, he's helping himself out, because even those blunders, all they do is muddy the waters. He says, they had my phones tapped. Instead of investigating what actually was going on, people are reporting on his tweet and questioning old FBI directors about a tweet. The man is a genius. Like, don't ever feel any empathy for this man. Don't ever feel bad for this man. This man is a con artist who failed his way through life with his daddy's money and now is 45 in America this day and age. I don't feel bad for him. I mean, I wish I could be like him. Somebody give me $1 million and let me start conning people. I tell you what, y'all
I completely agree with you, but it's an interesting way. I didn't do this on purpose, but it's this thing I've done to manage the feeling that we have put into office someone who is unbelievably untrustworthy and dangerous. So it's my psychological,
Nixon.
It's my response of like, and everyone who knows him and is connected to him, and when he undercuts everyone left and right, he claims something, he tweets the wrong thing. I mean, Sean Spicer, bless his little heart. So it's just my mom response, I think, more than anything. But I agree with you. It's so overwhelming to really think about. So I shut down and try to feel bad, I guess.
I think, that's the big question ultimately. And I think we'll never have the answer. Is he really just a lucky and useful idiot? As we historically, the term is important and contextualized here. It makes sense. So is he a lucky idiot and a useful idiot, or is he a genius? And it really can't be anything in the middle. It has to be one of the extremes, and I don't think we'll ever know. Both are honestly almost equally likely, but I don't know. We'll never know.
You can answer the question yourself. It's really easy. He call him an idiot savant. He's a smart person in what he does. He knows marketing. He knows branding. He knows himself. He knows name. He knows value. He knows recognition. He tried to be a businessman on his own. He failed. So then he leveraged his name and his name popularity to continue doing business and have other people take on the brunt of the losses of his deals. So the guy is smart. The guy's a con man. He knows how to walk into a room.
I don't know.
And listen to what he wants. He gets on a stupid little TV show and he says stupid little things and people listen to him. He goes out and he says the birth certificate. You repeat things and he's smart. He's smart at what he's smart at. Does he know how to budget a balance of a book? No. Does he know how to read? Probably not. But he's smart, and he knows how to perpetuate image of himself of power and control, and it has helped him throughout his life. Yeah. So that's the genius.
All right, also, Marlene, anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was actually, in the end, as an outsider, I'm actually really not that interested if this is all intentional, or if it's just like a mess that, he happens to stumble into. In the end, the acts that he takes, the things he says, the damage that he does, the danger that he poses in my view to minorities, but also to a feeling of we're in this together. In the end, I don't care where it comes from. That the effects are real, and even no matter if he sits his full term, even if he gets reelected, whatever, if we've seen anything in Holland with politics becoming more, going more to the right and going more extreme, in the end, if the person goes away, the conversation is still shifted, and that stays, and that's really dangerous. So I'm not so sure if the cause is that important, if the effects are real anyway.
Well, isn't it if we can all see him as a clown, it reduces some of that? Because I agree with you completely that is the real danger. And to be an American outside of America and have to answer over and over and over again for what have my people done, you get really good at saying, he's insane, he's uprooting the system. And, there's people who, politics usual, they'd like to see it differently. I'm trying to justify how we could have gotten to this place. And yet I recognize one of the great American exports is culture, is information, is every Swedish kid can speak perfect American accented English from YouTube and playing Minecraft. So that, you're absolutely right. That impact is real. But there's a part of me that wants us all to just see him as a clown, because aren't we used to dictators being a guy who, a narcissist who can't get enough power, and we can see them as the core, not all 325 million Americans. But when I talk to Swedes, they're pretty sure half of America has lost its mind. So
Brexit? Anybody? Brexit?
Yeah. Here's the thing about Brexit. The young people voted the next time around. Like, that's the thing that at least England is attempting to pull off, is it woke them up a little. I don't know.
And that's what I was saying about America.
That's what Owen was saying. Yeah.
But Wendy, I have a feeling. I understand. I understand what you're saying, but I'm afraid that the idea of us saying, or you're feeling like I'm sorry if I'm crossing a line, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But the feeling as a white woman to say, can't you please understand that he does not represent all Americans? It's a really, really big luxury to feel that only now. Because there are so many minorities who are constantly addressed by actions of individuals. And they are being called out as groups all the time. And I understand, and it's really difficult because it's still unfair. It's incredibly unfair. I wholeheartedly agree. But I think that that for us, it's a really big luxury to be only now confronted by that notion that it's so unfair that we're...
Oh, absolutely. Which I think, and I agree with you completely, it comes from a place of total privilege. I have a good friend here who's a refugee from Syria who told me from the minute Trump entered that race that he would win. And I kept saying, no way. We talked about it over and over and over. And when he won, he said, yeah, sorry, but I knew it. And I said, how do you know it? He's like, because people secretly hold certain beliefs and feelings. And that's the thing that is, if white people are going to wake up or any dominant group wakes up, sometimes they have to be threatened, maybe for the first time. So you can ask somebody who's, lived in America a long time and said, well, this doesn't surprise me at all. But for the sort of liberal, tree-hugging white side of things, they're like, oh, how is the world not PC? Because it's supposed to be. So that's certainly
how I felt as well. But I feel, we do have a black man on the panel, so maybe we could ask him as well how he feels. And
that's what I meant when you're not crossing the line when you were saying that you're a woman and so here's the thing. Being black, especially in America, is a very convoluted, crappy situation. So do I care about how bad education is? No. Do I care about, honestly, people in Syria and other countries dying? No. Do I think that this president is going to be so bad for the world? No. Because I lived through Bush. I traveled around the world and people ask me the same questions. How could you go with that idiot? He's just ruining everything.
You don't think it's worse, though?
Listen. Just think about it from a standpoint of we started false wars that have killed millions of people, that have tumbled into other wars, and a quote unquote good president extending and expanding those wars. And then we don't want to take care of those people because we're just going there blowing up places. So is it worse? I don't know. President number 45 hasn't started a new war yet. Killing a whole bunch of people isn't on his docket just yet. I mean, we have Syria going on, but I mean, on his docket, he hasn't started a new war yet. So when we give this record of, oh, he's just the worst thing for everything. Well, we had some pretty cool guys out here killing and dropping bombs day after day after day. For what reason? Expansion, oil, money, corruption. It goes on and on. So like I said, the fact that there's a moron in the House who can't hide his agenda helps people that are commonplace understand the corruption. Because when you sit there and you say, oh, well, we got to go save Timothy in this far off land, but then you don't care about all the kids getting killed and slaughtered in Africa. Well, why not? Because we're not drilling oil in Africa? Like, I don't understand what's going on. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. But this president is not the beginning and the end all of minorities for women or anybody being mistreated. I didn't get no Obama Prize in the mail. Dude was in there for 8 years. Chicago had the murders rate above any murders per capita. His city couldn't stop people from killing. Oh, the highest murder rate for the last 4 years of his presidency of the whole country was in his city. You know what you do, Mr. President? You go take your freaking army of people that watch you, go drive through Chicago for 3 days and shut the whole city down and save some lives. That's what you do. But you know what? We sit there. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't do anything about it. So I feel it's like the same. As a minority, I feel like no matter who the president is, he doesn't run anything. He's a puppet.
So basically what you're saying is this, we as white people look at this, and me as a white man, especially maybe, we look at this and we're like, oh my God, this is so horrible. But it's only because we're seeing it now when the minorities, you know, in the case of the other two panelists, the women, and in your case, Owen, the black people or the colored people in more widely, were like, well, yeah, it's been like that for forever. So welcome to the party, basically.
I'm going to say one more thing, and I'll be quiet later, but I'll talk for a second. It's the general example I give people is watch any zombie apocalypse movie.
Okay.
All these white people survive. And I'm sorry, this is going to sound crazy, but white people aren't going to make it. If there's an apocalypse,
I think you're damn right.
White people are generally the weaker of the genetics, just by genetics. Black people are bigger, stronger, faster. But you know who's really going to make it? Latinos, Spanish people, Mexicans, they're going to make it. They're the ones out here working in 800-degree weather, laughing at me about air conditioning. They're the ones that are going to survive on nothing to eat because they snuck over here in a barrel for 3 weeks with some coyote. Like, white people just aren't going to make it. Their sensitivity is too high. They're too soft and they're too privileged. So if something crazy goes down, white people can't make it. Spanish people, black people, people being deported.
I don't know,
Obama
man. You were the
more
one
people in history.
You were the one complaining about air conditioning. We are enduring the heat wave here in Europe. Okay,
that is true.
It's not 100% science. I'm just saying in general, 90% of the white people ain't gonna make it like on these movies and shows. It might be 80% Latino and like 10% black, like 5% white. What I'm saying. My stat butt's not. I'm not running nowhere.
I have to admit that I personally, even though I can probably endure the heat wave, I would collapse after running like 15 meters, and the zombies would eat me first. So,
in fact, actually, I think our prayers have been heard. It started. There's thunder going outside now, so we're cooling off just a little.
Excellent, fantastic. The prayers of the Phileas Club have been heard. All right, so thank you guys for this panorama picture. Honestly, it's not exactly what I was expecting the reaction to be, but it's a very interesting take on the first 6 months. I want to talk about the French election for a little bit because it is now basically over. We've had the parliamentary election and a few days ago, and if you guys remember. So I'm going to summarize. I'm not going to go over all the details, but really one way to look at what happened in the French elections with this new guy who came out of nowhere and because of corruption scandals and the number of other factors managed to become president and now has had a majority in the parliament, again, with his party that didn't exist like 6 months ago for all intents and purposes. That is cataclysmic for the French political landscape. We were expecting him to have to form an alliance with other parties in order to be able to govern, but surprisingly, he got a majority. Not as large as some people had predicted initially, but still a absolute majority in the parliament, which was very surprising. And one thing that's really interesting, I think, in the way to look at it is, I think that guy is our Donald Trump in a way, meaning, he's maybe the good side of Donald Trump, the flip side of the coin, because he's really a guy that came out of nowhere, and that was the catalyst for people who were tired of the old system and of the old habits, some of them morally ambiguous, and we managed to sort of focus our energy and anger on him to get him in power, instead of having the old guard still being here. And in the parliament, the old parties are basically almost non-existent. I guess we have 577 seats, I think. The Republicans have a little over 100. And after that, you have the Socialist Party that has like 30 or 40. And after that, it's in the teens. So, and the En Marche, the Onwards, has 320, which is the majority is at 280 or something like that. So it's like they dominate now. And there are two elements to this. One, he was saying we need to end the polarization of our political discourse. You can't keep criticizing an idea if it's come from the other side, like not just criticize it, but admonish it just because it comes from the other side. That was a very strong message that he was conveying. And the other one was, we need to end it's not even really about corruption. It's more about abusing the system for political figures. And a lot of people were saying, you need to have a clean break and you need to have everything clean now. And my thinking was, you have to, it's idealistic. You need to do this in steps. And there were 3 ministers from his government that were kind of not even indicted, but there was not a study, investigation open on them, and we didn't know if they were even guilty. Like, there are obviously steps, you open an investigation and then you indict someone and then there's a judgment, and once the judgment has been set, you know if they're guilty or not. So we are a few steps removed, and the rule was for the government that if you're indicted, you can't stay in power. And that was kind of a strict rule they had established. But the 3 ministers out of 30, I think, that were involved in issues, and the issues, just so you understand, are having parliamentary aides being paid by the parliament to work on their party's affairs. So it's not as bad as what happened with the Republican candidate in the elections, in the presidential election, where he was having someone, his wife namely, and others, paid by the parliament or other functions to do nothing. So it was fake jobs. In this case, it's misappropriation of funds, which is obviously bad as well, but it's still in the investigation process. And 3 of his ministers that were involved in those investigations have been changed after the parliamentary elections, and they've been taken out of the government. And this is a pretty strong signal that I think even his opposition was not expecting to go as fast. Of course, there are still questions in the parliamentary elections. The abstention was really high, higher than we usually have. So there are questions of legitimacy of his action and a bunch of things like that. But the fact that he put out those ministers that were being investigated, not even indicted, including some of his biggest support during the presidential election, is, to me, a pretty strong signal that he's serious about this making things more moral. And even more than this, I think the murdering politically of the Republican the Republican candidate, because of the scandals that he was involved in, and what's happening now with those demotions is signaling a gradual change in the French political system, which is bringing us closer to what we're seeing in the north of Europe. You know, Nordic countries have very strict intolerance for these kinds of scandals. And in the south of Europe, it's a little bit less fluid, let's say. And France has always been in the middle, and we're not really sure exactly what we want to be. And here, you know, time and time again, over the past 20 or 30 years, I've seen France make the right choice in these things. And we're still a very messy country when you look at more Germanic countries. But I'm a little bit biased because I think that the answer that this party is giving are the right answers. We'll have to see over the next 2 years what happens with their actual policies and actions to see what happens. But I still think that this is encouraging, and we're going the right direction, slowly, but in the right direction. So, and I'm surprised because a few months ago, I didn't think that's how things were going to go. I was very, very worried. So yeah, that's the main thing that has been happening in France. I'm wondering if you guys have heard a little bit about this and about Macron and the Macron mania overtaking the country.
I have to say, thank you, France. I mean, that was the wake up to the news morning where I was like, oh, thank you. That it wasn't Penn, I mean, to me, that's the fear I have of sort of the candidate winning that conjures up sort of the support that hasn't been voters before, or they feel slighted and, you know, alt-right or whatever that may be, and emboldens them. And it felt like France was like, no, we're still, I don't know. So thanks. That's all I have to say.
Well, was that a sentiment that was echoed in Sweden, or how was it reported on in Sweden? Was it, you know, oh, he's young and somewhat handsome?
Oh, yeah, we love our young and handsome. But I think it's his sort of where he is politically that matters more to Swedes, of course, and just fellow Europeans being how they would see as sane. Because Brexit seems insane. And I mean, I remember when Trump won, the next morning, every newscaster, I mean, as you listen to them on the radio, you could hear their mouths were just open. Like, what just happened? And, you know, the Prime Minister of Sweden, his statement was, well, we'll continue to work with America. Like it was, we're going to do our best. So I feel like that, you know, they saw the French election, a similar referendum, similar to the one in Holland. And obviously Brexit has kind of gone a different way, but it frightens them, of course. They feel pretty, and they're a little country with, I mean, a lot of land, but not a lot of power. So it's a relief.
I think a lot of the smaller countries are very worried about what's happening, what would, and I guess still could happen to Europe, but we're a little bit reassured now with the French-German axis being, well, maybe axis is a wrong choice of word, but being strengthened with this very pro-Europe Macron being elected. Marlene, you're in a difficult situation in your country. How did the news of the French, I mean, now it's done. It's been the presidential election. We always need to wait for the parliamentary election, but now it's done and we have a solid government in place. How was that received in the context of your embroiled government?
I think very similarly to what Wendy described. I think the Netherlands was one of the founding, like at the core of European integration. We started with Belgium and Luxembourg. And from there, like it sort of expanded. So I think like traditionally the Dutch really considered themselves to be part of the founding idea of a united Europe. And indeed, the same sentiment here. Brexit is completely crazy. There was no plan. There was no need for the referendum and all of that. I think many people who are part of politics really felt betrayed by just running the risk in the UK with the referendum. So yeah, I've already seen a couple of news headlines. We are a nation of traders, after all. We've always been a small country, but with like big airports, big waterways. So the first headlines are how the Dutch can sort of strengthen their position to partner with the French and the Germans, because we're a tiny country and we love to be acknowledged. So
as most,
so
countries,
so that's really I think that's a big part of it. One of the things that I was wondering that it just struck me just now, it might be lightning because it's really starting to open up around here. So let me know if there's any trouble with sounds.
No, it's fine.
But otherwise, am I right in understanding that Macron's party is maybe socially a little more left of center, but otherwise still rather middle of the road, and economically as well? Or am I really something stupid?
No, I think it still remains to be seen. His government is composed of people from the left and from the right. And that's something that both the left and the right are decrying because they've been in those, opposition postures for so long. I think if you ask anyone outside of France, they would say he's a social democrat, maybe a little bit to the right on the economic side, because he's almost a caricature of a startup enthusiast. He wants to make France a startup nation, and he's like, yes, technology. And he had this Make Our Planet Great Again speech where he's actually following up with actions. He created a tech visa, 4-year tech visa for people who want to come to France and work in the tech industry. He's really trying to push that aspect of the economy, which again, I think a lot of people might say, I'm very mindful of the opposition when I'm speaking about this, of the opposition in France, who would say, yeah, but, he's a rich white dude and he's trying to solve every problem with not a checkbook, but yay, we're going to have tech
fund for this and
unicorns
fund for that.
And at the same time, he's trying to reduce a little bit of the taxes and these kinds of things. So I think anywhere around the world, he would be looked at as a social democrat, more or less. In France, he's looked at as right of center, I think.
Okay.
But we still have to wait, for his actual policies to be put in place.
Because what I'm really struck by is that because part of the discussion of the French election in Holland was in the Netherlands. I'm trying to get it right this time. In my country,
that's easier. Yeah,
yeah, it's easier. Was definitely we held back the far right, as did France. But I think that if you look at the outcomes, and also if you same, I think with the snap election in the UK, the feeling, we held back to the extremes. But if you look, I think indeed we still don't have a government. One of the reasons for that is that there is basically no political center anymore. People have either moved to the right or the far right, or to the left or the far left. But there is basically there's no sort of a middle of the road center political party left anymore, which is why these coalition talks in Holland, in my country, are taking so incredibly long. If you look, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I think. Yeah, well, I think in the UK it's something similar. Like the center has lost a lot, but if I understand it correctly, that is completely different in France, because the new party has an absolute majority.
That's basically the platform he ran on. He was, and that's why he sort of saved the day, I think, for us, because we were going the same route as the rest of the world. Basically, more polarization, more on principle criticizing of the other side, no matter what they say. And he stood there, and because of everything that happened, he stood there and he was saying, in more polite terms, stop this madness. This is moronic. And he could, because of the other people falling like flies, he could get his message heard, and the French people responded very strongly to this. So I think we got lucky and took advantage of that luck. And I'm hoping that we can show the way. First of all, I'm hoping he succeeds, which is not a given. Mm-hmm. He might fall flat on his face. But I hope the first thing he needs to do is get some proportional representation in the parliament, because currently we don't see the extremes are represented very, very little. The far right has like 8 seats. The far left has 17. And that's not okay. We need to have them because they represent, 15, 20% of the population. They should be represented more, even if it's 10%, So that's an important thing that a lot of people have been talking about for decades and that they haven't done. But the second thing is obviously to get unemployment lower and the economy back. And if he manages to do that, then we can see that approach works. If it doesn't work, then I fear we'll go back to polarization, and it might not create the beacon of hope that we would like to see for Europe, that, the center can work. But I did want to ask, Owen, have you heard about this guy at all in the U.S., or is it squarely focused on 45?
So let me tell you 2 things. First, you're welcome. Without us doing what we did, again, like I said, people realize that crazy stuff's going on. And in certain places, luckily for you, France is small, and there's a lot of diversity in
If
general.
France is small, what are we?
It's all a matter of perspective. I would say, yes, the small countries love being noticed, but on the stage of, the US, China, and Russia, when someone talks to us, we're like, yay, someone talked to France. So yeah, it's all relative. But sorry, Owen, keep going.
Sorry, Owen.
If you don't have a major iconic city that's in movies, and people will never know about you. So they.
Oh, I'm sorry. In that case, we are a big country, and we have Amsterdam.
You have pot, so that is your
stoners that don't do anything but sit on their couch to smoke weed. It's not the same. Anywho, again, you're welcome, because that's why it's funny. Like here when Kanye West is like, oh, I'm going to run for president in 2020, and people laughed. Now they're like, oh, wow, if Trump could be president, anybody could do it. So that's the first thing. Secondly,
is Kanye going to run? Is Kanye going to run for president?
No, I hope a wrestler named The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, The Rock. Yeah, of course. I vote for him.
The Rock runs, he's going to win. But the first article I saw about the French guy, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm almost positive this is him. Did he marry his old teacher or something?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That was the first article I ever read on this dude. That was the article. I'm saying so he's but wait, he married. So you told me he married an old woman in his romance story and how she's still hot and he's hot, but he married an older woman. And that's what I'm reading. That's the first thing I read. That's the first thing I saw about the dude. That's how America cares. And that's how we got 45 and America.
Well, America. To be fair, I think a few people cared about the fact that he married his old teacher, but there were almost immediately, anytime anyone mentions this, well, the fact that she was his teacher makes it a little bit weird. But at the same time, a lot of people go like, well, if a woman was married. I mean, if the man was much older and the woman was much younger, no one would care. So there's some, realization of that double standard.
Teacher thing is what made it happen. And the fact that he waited around, the way they made it sound, it was like a creepy love story and made older women feel good that they could still get a young Thundercat to love them. That's the way it was portrayed.
There's a little bit of that. I won't lie. There is a little bit of that. Yeah.
As opposed to the usual older man is out there luring with money to get the younger woman. So it's a whole to do. But that was the first thing I read about the guy, and then I looked into it a little bit afterwards, and he seems like a cool dude. Seems like a cool cat doing things differently, and I wouldn't mind having him run stuff over here. Someone like him. He reminds me of the dude that's running Canada, Trudeau, whatever his name is.
Yeah, Trudeau. Yeah.
There's
there's apparently some romantic fan fiction between the two, Trudeau and Macron, happening.
Of course there is. Amazing.
On the internet.
Not that has anything to do with it, but so when you look at, there was an article I read. Again, it's stupid that politics even comes down to this anymore. But how the rest of the world is getting sexier and younger or whatever, and then they just put Trump next to other leaders, and they're all cringe next to him. It is the most amusing thing because he just, even in the most powerful position, the fact that you could turn people off that quickly, that they can't even respect you. Because most of the time, even if they don't like you, they still have to respect the position. People look at him like they either want to run away or stab him repeatedly. That there's no other adoration thrown his way from anyone except for maybe England.
Well, as someone said, I think it was Wendy or Marlene, sorry, but the UK election has gone, you know what people have been talking about now? It's the Queen's hat, which was basically a mini European flag. And that made a lot of noise. Rightfully so, I think. It's basically the biggest way that the Queen could say anything about this is this wearing this hat, which is a very strong statement for that. Of course, it doesn't really matter, but it matters in the symbolic sense. But,
well, but I think in that case it does matter because I think in the UK it is incredibly not done for the Queen to have any noticeable political views.
Of course, yeah.
So in that case, it actually is a big deal that she still did, because for people who
I don't think it's going to have an impact.
Blue hat.
No.
But I think that she ran the risk of even all these talks about, because I've seen that headline in Dutch newspapers too.
Mm-hmm.
She had a blue hat with yellow flowers that looked suspiciously like the yellow stars on the blue flag. That's the EU flag.
Yeah.
So does she have any power?
No. Well,
so
it's symbolic. It's symbolic.
She's a symbolic figure of someone who has no power whatsoever. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I don't even know why you still even have a queen. I don't know why it matters. It's like throwing a parade for your dog and celebrating your dog's birthday. Oh yeah, the dog's a part of the family. No, it's not. It's just your dog, and treat it as such. Because the fact that she wore a hat, whoop-de flippity do. So you wore a hat to signify to what? People that already went and voted a certain way and then shit. The Queen stuff drives me crazy. That whole thing just needs to get done because it doesn't mean anything. Are you going to rally the troops? You can't say anything. If you're not politically empowered to do anything, then just open your mouth and say, this isn't the way I feel the country should be run. That's how you inspire people, not wearing a yellow hat with orange flowers in it. The Queen.
No, but I'm sorry, but look at Trump. Look at how successful he is with using symbols. It's the same thing. But
he got power. He
does now. But there are plenty of people have always used symbols to express things when they didn't have any political power to change. And sometimes it's not about changing. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal that it's going to change something. But I think it was significant because I mean, she's been sitting on that throne for a really long time, really long time.
And it's doing what?
Well, yeah, she's sitting here being the queen. But then if in this entire time, if she actually picked this moment to at least make some sort of a little statement, I thought it at least interesting that it
I think it's we could get into a whole other episode, and maybe we should one day, about the royalty in the UK. That would be an interesting one. But Yeah, I mean, it was noticed. At least we can agree on that, and it was reported on. So, all right,
That's
let's
just my
move on.
rebellious America against going against kings and queens. That's all. We're over the pond over here. We don't run that kind of stuff anymore. You know, we fought for that. So that's just my inner American coming out.
Well, you know, we're not too fond of royalty here in France either. Last time it didn't go too well for them, so I think we kind of can share that characteristic. All right.
They were almost done in the Netherlands, and then our crown prince married a beautiful Argentinian woman, and then suddenly everybody's totally okay with monarchy again.
Well, you know, in Sweden they have a royal family as well, and everyone loves them, right?
Yeah, they do. Partly because they are. I mean, I think people could complain about the money that gets wasted, but these are folks that are, you know, ride their kids in their bucket bikes to school and go to regular. I mean, they're pretty low key.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly the same kind of royal family. Right?
No, I mean, I think most people in the Netherlands also like sort of like they don't want like sort of. It's been discussed, should our monarchy be like completely symbolic, like in the UK, and everybody's like, nah. If it's that bad, then just ditch it.
I can't imagine the money that they spend on the Queen and the Prince and all that stuff in England, and then the Prime Minister lives in this little row home house. Like, I can't. It's just so weird to me that she sits in this cave of money and power and gold, and they just pamper her and just hang out and does whatever she wants and fly her all over the world.
You should watch the Crown show on Netflix. It's pretty good.
I'll check it out.
All right, Wendy, what's been happening in Sweden?
Okay, well, I have picked a story that might not be the newest of stories, but I have a microphone suddenly, and I'm going to talk about it.
Sure, go nuts.
So maybe all of you have heard this, that Sweden has the highest incidences of rape in the world.
In Sweden?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you heard this?
Yes.
No. I had no idea.
I'll tell you why American has heard it, because Americans love this crap. It was written somewhere that internationally all the newspaper were like, what? Sweden's the rape capital of the world. And then it fits into so many narratives of Sweden has also taken in all these refugees, and of course it's their fault.
Oh, because let me guess. It's because of what they consider rape, I'm guessing. But
I'll get to that. I'll get to that because there's a number of factors. But
okay.
I'll tell you a personal experience. So I am working with a client who lives in the United States. We're talking, and she's planning a trip to Scandinavia with a bunch of friends. They're all singles in their mid-20s, early 30s. And she says, my friend refuses to go to Stockholm. We've canceled that part of the trip because she read this article about the incidences of rape. And I said, I literally don't know of a safer place on earth than Sweden. I don't know of any. So go outside your door. You're in more risk of being raped right then than you are in going to Stockholm. And it's because, again, how news is portrayed, and this may be a whole nother discussion of how
fake news
fake news or how it's reported, the way it leaves out a lot of things, or it's contextual within a culture. So I've had many, many people ask me to verify what they've read, because they know we live here. We brought our kids here. We're happy here. That, you know, I talk about how safe it is. It's amazing. I don't have to lock anything. And it's very confusing to them. Like, wait, but I heard this. So I found this great article. It's kind of recent. Someone explaining some of this. So what was your first guess there? You said, Patrick?
Oh, I know that some things are considered rape that I don't think would be considered rape in other countries, but
absolutely. Okay, so the numbers, I'll give you the numbers first. So the evidence, the claims suggest that it's about 63 reported rape incidents per 100,000 citizens in Sweden, compared to 27.3 out of 100 in the US and 27.9 out of 100,000 in Belgium. Okay, so the difference is, and it's really interesting because once you live somewhere and get a good sense of the culture, first of all, women are very much empowered in Sweden, very much encouraged to speak out against this type of thing. So reporting is an interesting thing. They report an incident, the police believe them, and then it's pursued, which is a very different experience sometimes in the United States. Women are not necessarily treated super well once they've reported a rape. We have a lot of evidence of rape kits being done in the United States that sit in storage for years and years and are never processed. A rape kit is when you're raped, that you go to the emergency room and they swab samples from your whole body. It's very traumatizing. And then they've never sort of been prosecuted. We have there's a lot of baggage with that in the United States, and it's a challenge. In Sweden, not so much. There's more of an emphasis on you need to report. This is the safe way to do it. There's a lot of maybe just generally more women empowered to sort of use their voices here. So there's that piece, but then there's also what, like you said, something that would be called sort of just sexual harassment or some type of physical assault that doesn't result in technically rape, but is sexually motivated or is violent, is also considered one of those numbers. So you're right. That's because they count everything towards that number.
So could you give us an example of what would be considered, included in the number of rapes that would not, people in other countries would not think so?
So aggravated assault in the United States might be someone has a weapon and they're threatening to harm someone and they didn't necessarily complete a rape or get, and they're apprehended or someone comes along and breaks it up, and how that may be reported as an aggravated assault. That number would go into a different category than a rape. So if the rape was completed, that would maybe count as a rape in the United States. In Sweden, that counts as a sexual assault/rape. So that goes into the number where we get that 63. So
to get a little bit graphic, but just so that we understand, even if there's no actual penetration, the aggression with the intent of rape is considered sexual assault, which would be counted in the rape statistics. Is that correct? Okay.
So there's a thing that happened sort of a little bit too much last summer at open air concerts and, big sort of group gatherings for festivals and different things, where women would be groped, or after a woman was drunk, someone would mess with her. And if any of those are reported, that goes into these numbers. They're very proactive about keeping track and, sort of marking everything down and having it all. So the numbers look really bad when you count all of those things. But here's the other thing I found really interesting as I researched this a little bit, is that, so let's take an example of a partner raping their spouse. And let's say it's 2 weeks, they rape the person every single day. The victim goes in and reports this to the police. That would count as 14 incidences in the Swedish numbers. That will count as potentially one instance in the way other countries record this. So it's one of those things about news and how we report things, and the power of not going deep is that we simply think, I can't go to Sweden, I'm going to get raped. Well, not true at all. In fact, you have so much more power here to protect yourself if something does occur because of the way the system is set up. So it's interesting, and I've found that I've had to perpetually teach people this. So I thought, okay, Patrick, this is the thing I'm going to talk about. So sorry.
Do you know what Sweden's crime is?
Yeah.
Sweden's crime is freedom and peace and energy and solar and doing things that are proactive. If you would just keep your mouth shut and go along with the status quo and maybe cut down on the wind and the solar and the social giveaways, the peace and the love and the happiness. If maybe somebody had a gum pop off every once in a while, we would respect you. But if not, we have to slander you and make you look bad. I've had very competent people telling me about Sweden and how bad Sweden is. Oh, and look at the numbers. And what you just said is all factually true. And in my brain, I instantly processed it when I read the article and people told it to me, so much so that I said, you're stupid. I'd send my child who's 10 and a girl walking through Sweden butt naked before I sent her through LA with an armed guard squad. Like, you don't understand, like, the things that people think in their mind, like, just because you read something, it doesn't tell the whole story. Because my thing was, well, where are the statistics versus other countries? Because the ones that were in the articles were so generalized that, okay, well, the first thing I thought was, well, what's considered rape? What are, the things you broke down are things that weren't even qualified in any of the like 3 articles I remember reading when people were just on this frenzy of, oh yeah, they like solar and they don't want to clean up the earth, but they can't stop their citizens from being raped. And I'm like, whoa, what? Sweden? What? No,
I think
So, but
it's definitely an issue of reporting and I think it's an issue of news media that I don't know that is getting solved. As bad as things are, I don't know that it's getting solved in the US or anywhere. But I mean, we keep fighting the good fight. But
one last thing can I say is that with regards to the massive influx of refugees in 2015, as the sexual assault rate went down that year, and I think sometimes the narrative, I think this is just human nature. I believe something, you tell me some other fact that doesn't jive with what I already believe. I have cognitive dissonance all of a sudden, and I got to rectify that. I either have to open myself up to learn more, or I'm going to double down and just be like, whatever, you're full of it. You're fake news, or there's a way to discount that so I can go back to feeling comfortable with what I think I already believe. And this is pretty human, and it's hard, and we hit it all the time. And news is one of those things that I think creates this quite a bit.
I think the solution is for everyone to listen to this show, but I'm biased. But I want to talk about this a little bit more, but I'm going to attack it from a slightly different angle because I think you broke it down, pretty much as much as it needed to be. I don't know exactly what the situation is in France, but there is one thing that was interesting that happened in the past few weeks, which was the release of the Wonder Woman movie. And I do think, I'm curious what the women on the panel think. You know what? I'm going to ask you two instead of saying what I think about it. Is it an event? What's your take on the Wonder Woman movie? And, the first major female superhero, like woman empowerment, all of these things.
That's false.
All right. But
aliens.
What? No, but superhero and current. I mean, anyway, Marlene.
I'm just busting your chops.
I know.
Yeah, it hurts like hell to say, but I still haven't seen it. I really want to. The release in Holland has actually been, I think, a little later, because I kept bugging my boyfriend.
The Netherlands is what you meant?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant the Netherlands and not Holland, because that's just a tiny part of our country. I'm so sorry. So in the Netherlands, the movie was just, I think, released for like a week or so, because I've been like bugging my boyfriend about wanting to go to the movies together. He also wants. That's not a problem, but I kept nagging about it while it was still not being shown. So
okay, all right.
But I'm really eager. The things I've heard are amazing. So,
well, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have seen it, but I was talking about the noise that was being made around it. But Wendy, do you have more of a take on it, or is it also not really something you care about?
I am planning to see it when I go to the States. It just came out in Sweden a couple weeks ago, but it's like $25 to go to a movie here. So I'm a cheapskate. So I'm going to wait till it's, $9 somewhere. But no, I'm excited to see it. I feel like, recently I heard Sarah Silverman tell a joke. She said, we got to stop telling girls they can be whatever they want to be when they grow up, because you plant in their head the idea that maybe they couldn't have been whatever they wanted to be. Like, you actually introduce the idea of they're not good enough by saying you can do it. You can be whatever you want to be. And I feel like there's a little bit of that with any step anyone takes with anything. It's just like, amazing. The first woman it's 2017, folks. Like, how is this really the first? That's ridiculous. And
it kind of is, though. I mean, in the world of superhero movies, current, the modern superhero movies with the wave of Marvel movies, it is the first female character that is not only, I mean, you'll tell me what you think when you see the movie, but she's, to put things objectively, she's a normal superhero. which I think is. I mean, I loved the movie. I thought it was. I want to take my mom see the movie. She was fighting for her rights in the Middle East when she was very young, and that meant wearing jeans and not a dress at the time. So I want her to see that it's possible, and that she can, she can be. It's not about pride, but she can see that all of it has led to something, and that we're still on the way. But I mean, she's not Wonder Woman, and that thing is incredibly powerful and not sexualized. And there's one thing which I loved was a while ago, there was a picture that circulated on the internet that was a girl for her birthday or whatever. She wanted to be Princess Thor. And I loved it,
I love that, yeah.
And she was a princess, and she was lovely and all of it, and she has Thor's hammer. And I think that's in the vein of what you were talking about with the Sarah Silverman joke.
Right.
Like, I completely agree, but we're in the steps. And I think the way I look at it is we're now in the same way that people realized racism isn't over. People are also realizing sexism isn't over, but for some reason, I think we're managing to progress a little bit faster on the long road of ending sexism than for racism. But this is, I think, symbolically, we were talking about symbols earlier. I think it is a significant symbol, and it's the first one. We make a big deal about it. Hopefully the second one, we won't make as big a deal about it. And the third one or the fourth one, it will become commonplace. But right. I mean, that's the way I look at it. But.
And then people see themselves in film. I think it's exciting when minority produced films are out and main characters. I heard a joke once like, is it possible to see a black man have sex in a movie that is not some caricature of something, but just a regular actor having a sex scene is not something you see. So and tell me if I'm wrong, but when you never see yourself as a normal character having a normal interaction in a movie, it really distances you from the culture at large that literally thinks every actor, every historical anyone was a white guy who looked like Brad Pitt. Like you don't see yourself
as a white guy places. Who doesn't look like Brad Pitt. I have to say, I feel very, very marginalized. But
there's something. And go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
Hold on, I'll get back to answer your question. I'm just going to hijack for 1 second. Leah, say hi.
Hi.
Can you hear?
Hi.
Yes.
We watched Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Did you feel empowered by it?
I don't know what that word means.
Did it make you feel strong? And did it make you think that girls could be strong and stuff?
I already know that.
True story.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Secondly, what do you want to be for Halloween? You don't know yet. Okay, so last year, this is just an example, and I'm going to get her out of here. We went and saw Deadpool, right?
Yeah.
What did you say after we walked out of Deadpool? What do you want to be for Halloween?
The girl.
Deadpool. And she was like, I wish there was a Deadpool girl. And I was like, oh, there is. There's Lady Deadpool. We went and got the comic book, and 9 months later, she was Lady Deadpool for Halloween. So, I mean, as far as the empowerment goes, like I said, that movie to me, and the way I raised my daughter, it wasn't empowering at all. Her hair was flowing too much. It was too pretty and too much makeup, and everybody looked like goddesses. So, I mean, yeah, that's just what every woman plans to be, a super beautiful 8-foot tall Amazon. So at the same time, when you're sitting there talking about the empowerment of women, it also degrades women at the same time. So,
well,
I mean,
all right. Just a second. It's superhero
just for
movies.
Me.
For men, superheroes,
look,
I also don't look like the men in those movies. I mean, that's... But yeah, okay, I get your point.
I'm saying the general premise of when you want to overdo the lore of women and what it is. Yes, it's a superhero movie. First of all, it's fake and it's not real. Secondly, as far as representation goes, I don't really have that issue because I watch a lot of black films. So I see black guys in power and stuff like that. And my daughter, we watch stuff. My friends call her Leah Farrakhan and Spike Leah. She's very into pro-justice and equality. And as you heard her say on her own accord, she already assumes that women are strong. So that movie didn't really do anything for her. It didn't even excite her enough to say, I want to be Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? Because it was an okay movie. And I feel like we're making a much bigger deal of it, just like you said, because there's not that many characters like that. But when you watch Marvel things, Scarlett Johansson's character and all those Iron Men and Avengers is the most. She's a Russian spy with no heart that keeps all these dudes in check. Like, I mean, so the fact that we're like drooling over Wonder Woman, I'm like, there have been other women recently that have carried this torch. You know, now we're going to get Black Panther, and black people are just excited we can go to Comic-Con and dress up like black people. That's the most exciting thing about Black Panther. You know, you get a black director, black all this. So I get it, but sometimes I feel like we overdo it because there's such a starvation for it.
Oh, that's the whole point. Yeah, that's exact. I agree. It's overdone. It's a little bit overdone. But the whole point is that because there was nothing before, or very little. I mean, yes, Scarlett Johansson, you know, the Black Widow.
I can name other characters too, but I see what you're saying. And the movie wasn't that great to me in general.
I thought it was.
I liked it. I saw it twice. I had to see it twice. Saw it for myself. Then I took the kid. So it's not like I didn't spend my money to go see it. But again. I'm just, like I said, I'm different. I think differently. My daughter is been raised to be a beast from birth, and she's MMA. She's a purple belt. She's been doing martial arts since she was 4. She plays every sport. Like, Lord knows, no one's going to take anything from her. She's going to give it to people, and that's my mentality. You are a first-class citizen in my eyes, and hopefully in her own eyes. And so I just think a little differently on those things.
See, that's awesome. And what I want is I want my skinny-ass white kids to watch movies about regular black people because it's in the theater. It is an option. Yeah. It is not, I don't have to search down through the internet to try to do that exposure. That's what I want. And shows about women where they are not sexualized, that they're not, if they're smart in the film, they're not also ready to flip off their glasses and wear a short skirt. Like, just more goodness, more well-rounded. That's what I want. So I have that, like, okay, here's a step. But then I find out she only made $300,000 to make that movie.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wait a minute.
That's my point about, again, when I hear that, I instantly break it down in the reality of things. These women are 9 feet tall. These women are all gorgeous. Her hair's flowing every 30 seconds of the movie. Like, they literally just put a fan in front of her face. She's walking through town. Her hair's just flowing. They would never do that to a dude. And yes, dudes are I'll never look like Thor except in my dreams and in somebody else's dreams. But at the same time,
I understand
like Thor
in my dreams.
And that's that's right. Black Hammer.
You sound like you could be Thor. So I have no image. I can completely go with you.
Hey, exactly. So I mean, and it's different because boys aren't taught to have that quote unquote shame. At some point, I was a thin kid, then I was a fat kid. I didn't cry when I watched He-Man and thought, oh, I'm never going to be that way, because it's just, hey, that guy's got a 6-pack. But women, it's like, oh, you don't have large breasts and you don't have blonde hair, you're worthless. So that's what I mean about just not even acknowledging that when I break down that movie, because I still see everything that's wrong with it. As much as I know what's right with it, I know what's wrong with it also.
I completely agree, and I long for that future when, exactly. I think just like the people in my country in France saying, oh, we need the entire government to be clean immediately, and look at this, like, we still have this scandal and this thing that is questionable and this thing that is morally reprehensible but not quite illegal, and like, and my answer to them is like, yes, I agree, but it's a process, and we need to get there step by step. And I really think that the saying, oh, but you know, the in this case she has hair flowing everywhere, and like, yeah, of course, it's not it, but we need to go through the steps in order to get to that future where raising a little girl to be a normal human being with the same rights and expectations as everyone is not going to be something to be celebrate, but something, exactly, not worth noting. And I think it's encouraging for me to see Wonder Woman, because I think it means, to me at least, it means we're on that road. So that's why I like it. But.
And full circle, again, as quote yourself, you are a white man. So you are at the highest archy of privilege. So, and you're a good white man. So you think, oh, this is great.
Thank you,
kumbaya. Women and minorities think, oh, cookies, you're pandering it a little bit. We appreciate it because we know better. We know the systemic. We know how deep it goes. So seeing this cookie on top of the cake, we're like, oh, yeah, cool story. But at the end of the day, I know what could be better. And even though I appreciate, even the way you started it, you characterized it as a superhero female character. It degrades the fact that other large characters by women have been played. So we nitpick and put it down in this little genre.
Okay, I'll let it go, but it's not.
I'm not saying you. I'm talking about the media in general. That's how it's been characterized. This is the first female because they want to put it in this box to make it bigger than it is, when really it's another female character. We've been long overdue for ones that we've had in the past. This isn't the first one, but when we finite it, again, at the same time with the Sarah Silverman thing, it makes one feel like, oh, well, we've never had a female lead. Yes, we have. We need to celebrate them more as opposed to finiting them down to celebrate them. Like I said,
I think the two men in this conversation talked way too much. But
no, we're the only ones that saw it. We saw the movie. They didn't see it. That's how much empowerment it did. It didn't even get them to go see it.
What are you doing? You're not playing your part for femaledom in the world.
We're not representing. Oh my!
No, but maybe it does mean something. You didn't run.
I do
to see
understand
it,
both. I really understand, because I'm with Patrick in the idea that I'm glad that we have this movie, and I'm mostly glad that it did so well in the box office.
Yes,
because what that to me shows that finally, because there are many things. Where the reaction has always been, well, if there would have been a market for it, it would have been made. Well, at least that ridiculous excuse, that is out of the way. So in that way, I'm glad. I think in that way, it did teach us something new, or at least a lesson that had not been heard enough. Let me put it that way. But I also understand that in the end, yes, movies are shape a lot of how we, I mean, in our Western world where we have all this access to movies, and where all these movies are such a big part of how we build our world, the world in our minds. I understand that it's really valuable, but I also understand that it's so much more. And I've when I hear you, Owen, and when I hear your daughter talk, it reminds me, for years I've been really frustrated about all these major outbursts of sexism or racism, whatever, on this entire chart. And it always makes me feel incredibly powerless, because the guys around me don't act that way. So instead of just complaining, what I've tried to do over the past year is have my boyfriend and my dad and my brother read pieces, articles online that I felt expressed how, as a white woman, I experience this world, and to point them out that there is not one day when I leave the house, there's not one day that there's no single, that there's none, no incident of sexism occurs in my personal life. And I've tried to explain that to me and give them examples. And what I see now is that because I show them this is what happens, and it's not just the big things, it's especially the tiny things that happen throughout the day. What I notice now is that my boyfriend came up to me and told me hey, I'm in our MT at my company. He works at a tech consultancy firm. He says, I want to show this article to my colleagues because I want to help them understand what it's like. And I cannot speak from my own experience, but this article helped me, so let me share. I notice now that when he comes home, he will sometimes say, I heard this colleague or I heard this guy at the gym say this, and then I decided, that's not okay. Let me say something about that. So what I notice is that next from just being annoyed and frustrated by all these big events that I indeed cannot change, and for which I'm really grateful that we now have a movie like Wonder Woman, and it shows there's a market for this. So please, let's make more, because it's a good way to make money. But also try to put that frustration, give it a place where it actually does help. Especially because the guys in my personal life aren't like that. That means that they all have colleagues whom they can speak to address. So I think it's both ways, because Owen, I think you're completely right. In the end, it's about what we teach our daughters, and that means they need to hear and see all the opportunities that they have, instead of it being some sort of special moment that we now have one movie.
And shout out to Robert Downey Jr. on the Avengers, the second movie. Scarlett Johansson was the lowest paid, and he refused to do the movie or sign a contract until she was paid equally with the other male counterparts.
Indeed.
And so things like that do matter at the end of the day too, because oh great, she did so much for women, and then at the back end they're not getting paid the same, and they're still getting treated a certain way. So it's superficial to me. And Patrick, like I said, I fully understand. I just always give the opposite view, but I get what you're saying. I agree in general. It's just, I can't.
And I want to just fuse what Owen and Marlene said about her comment about teaching girls. Absolutely, I'm the mother of 3 boys, and I'll tell you, 3 white boys. Like, my husband and I are ugly white people. My boy is a handsome white boy. So every privilege is on its way down his doorstep, right? And so we have lots of cool conversations. But what is so amazing, and your daughter's a great example of this, is this crap is taught and shown to them over time, which means the opposite is true. And my kid comes home the other day and starts to talk to me about why girls are dyeing their hair or trying to look a certain way, and he's trying to understand it. And we go into, well, let's talk about what society tells them. Let's talk about what boys demand, or at least in their minds. So what are you going to proactively do about it? So we went to this girl who had dyed her hair and just said, I think you're really great as a person. And kind of just gave a like, hey, I have another thought here. Or he found out his favorite music is that annoying EDM, whatever. And he said to me, Mom, why can't I find any female artists? And I said, that's a great question. Why don't you figure that out? So he searched and searched. He found a bunch. He loves them. He's paying for their music. He's promoting them to other people because it's the seeds are there. And children are the future. There we go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wendy. You're totally right. It's about teaching all of them. Thank you.
All right. I think we're going to slowly get closer to the end of the show. But Marlene, we did mention a little bit the fact that you don't have a government yet. Is there? Do you want to talk about what's happening in the Netherlands?
In the Netherlands, yes.
I mean, that or something else?
Definitely. So we had elections in March. I'll make it super, super quick. We had elections halfway through March. And there were quite some big shifts. As I said, the political center has been completely vanished. We have a much bigger parties on the right and on the left, but especially we have the fringe parties have especially gotten bigger. So we have moved to the extremes on all accounts. So because we have a representative democracy, which is like we don't have a winner takes all system, so we count all the votes in our tiny country, and then we divide the total number of votes cast. We divide that to through 150, which is the number of seats in our parliament. And that means that if you have, for one seat, you need X number of votes.
So it's entirely proportional. It's not like by region and...
Exactly. Yeah. It's entirely... Thank you. That's the correct word. It's entirely proportional. So last time I was on, I forgot to mention that there's this beautiful infographic of what's the difference if we would have like the winner takes all system per province, which is sort of like, well, on average, I mean, in a really general way, you could say like America has its states and we have like provinces, which are like the second level of government, and how that would change how the parties are divided. If we would have had like the per province sort of American system, we would have only 3 parties. And we now have, let me count, 13 parties. So that's quite a difference.
Okay.
And that means that, so with 13 parties divided over 150 seats, that means that you need to get at least 76 people in agreement. Normally, that used to be 2 parties, maybe 3 parties. Especially, I think, since the Second World War, it has mostly been a combination of 3 parties. But right now, there is not even one combination of 3 parties that would work, except if you would work with the party run by Geert Wilders, which is the most extreme right party. Also somebody who's very famous across our borders, is definitely not one of our most proudest export products. Let me put it that way. And basically every party has said, we will not work with him. So because of that, you need at least 4 parties now to form a coalition. The one that was sort of everybody expected we would end up with, they've tried all these talks, it didn't work out. Then they had a new informateur, as we said. So the person who's in charge of the negotiations between all those parties, the dude who sits at the also the first time it was a woman. So either the lady or the man who runs these talks. We have a new one of those now because the first one wasn't able to find a good match. And
so it's been 4 months.
Oh, yeah. So we've only just now broken the average time it takes for us to form a coalition. So really, we have plenty of time left.
Okay.
No problem.
Oh, so that's not that uncommon. It feels to me like you're saying it's the apocalypse, but
it
isn't.
Is. Well, sort of it is, because normally we would now say, yeah, it's either going to be this coalition or that coalition, and they just need to figure out sort of the little
details,
things,
right.
the tiny details and all that. Right now, people are saying we have no idea if this is even going to work ever.
So let me ask you, what's the feeling then about, because when you came on the show after the election and you said the far right had been pushed back a little bit and didn't take it all, you felt really good about the election because it was moderate. I'm guessing you're not regretting what happened, but how does the country feel about the election?
Oh, yeah. So, see, this is my turn to say I do not represent everybody who lives in the Netherlands, not even everybody who lives in Holland. Can you imagine that? So, that I think many people are sort of, because all of the commentators are just saying, well, we don't know either. There's not, I have a feeling there's not a lot of sort of hysteria on they should go this way, they should go that way, or it's crazy. Everybody's yeah, that's a really complicated puzzle. Good luck on that.
You're meaning there's no inflammatory comments or politicizing of this whole thing? Are people being reasonable?
No, I think people are just waiting, and they'll just wait and see.
Right, but that seems like a somewhat reasonable approach. I'm sure in some other countries, looking westward, that would become the incompetence of whoever and the scandalous whatever of whoever. There's no inflaming the situation, is what I'm understanding from what you're saying.
Well, I mean, of course, there are some talks like that, but to as far as I've read them, they are really rather moderate, and that is because we have always been a nation of a country of coalition government. So we know that there's honestly no use in making a big huff about it, because that will only lessen your chances of actually becoming part of the government, because all you can do is be really mean about those parties that you might need to make a deal with, and that's really difficult. So there's one big party, so Geert Wilders' party, the PVV, and a new party who is also on the extreme right, but who only has 2 seats out of 150. So we don't really care. They keep making a big huff about it, because that's what they do. They're not interested at all in being part of a coalition, because that would mean they need to make compromises, and they know very, very well that will never pay off for them politically. Okay. So not only do others not want to work with them, but it also doesn't make any political sense for themselves to do that. However, they together they take up so many seats that the puzzle is really, really difficult. And I was indeed really optimistic, because that formation, that coalition of 4 parties that has now twice officially sort of fallen apart, I was really hoping, really praying that would be it. And so now that is off the table, I am seriously worried.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll keep following that amazing TV show of an election in the next few months.
I'll make sure to retweet the image of like how the type of voting system, like what the effect of that is on the government.
Oh yeah, so, yeah. Tweet it at me. I'll retweet it as well.
Yeah, because it's really mind blowing.
Yeah. I mean that's the problem we're having in France, which we have no proportional representation, and I think the answer lies in the middle, because if you want to have a country that is governable, you need to have some unity, but also you need to have, so what we hopefully will have is a mix between the two. All right. I think that brings us to the close of this very long episode. I want to thank all three of you for being on the show. Let me ask each of you to tell me where we can find you on the internet. Wendy, is it still Instagram?
Yeah, I can't get sucked into that other stuff. Wendy, Wendi, Dunford, Dunford on Instagram, and then you can find me on therapythursdays.com as well.
On therapythursdays.com.
Thursdays with an S, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Wendy.
Thanks for having me.
Marlene, what about yourself?
I'm on Twitter. I'm also, I didn't get to say it, but I'm incredibly honored to be on the show with Wendy, because I've heard her Therapy Thursday talks on Scott's show a lot, and you always made sense of the American soul to me. So thank you for that.
Thanks. That's so nice.
So it's nice to meet you, and I'm very glad I met Owen, because I'll from now on, when I don't know an answer, I'll just say America.
Exactly.
And I can live with that. But otherwise, you can find me on Twitter. I am at Monxies, and that's spelled Monxies. I think, if I got my English up.
It will be in the show notes anyway, so you don't have to.
And and I'd love to hear from people, because last time I was on, I had some really lovely conversations afterwards with listeners. So glad to hear what you're thinking.
Yeah, the listeners are lovely people on this show.
They are, yeah.
Owen, what about yourself, good sir?
First of all, I'd like to get a verbal confirmation from you, Patrick, that you will join me on my podcast. It's called Doc Tales, where we interview people. So since I did your show twice, I figured you had to pay me back. So can I get a yes on that? Just go ahead and say yes real quick.
It is not just a yes. It is an emphatic and enthusiastic yes.
Yes, and you can find those things at iqmz.com. I'm on the internet as ODoctor on everything, and if I'm not there, then it's not available, because nobody wants to steal my name because I'm crazy. So I can just leave stuff floating out there without taking it. Appreciate the show. Lovely to be surrounded by lovely ladies. I don't know if you noticed this, but I love women. I love listening to women. I love thinking and thinking about women, everything about women. So being on a show with two women is exciting for moi. And got to sneak my daughter in, so that's 3 women on the show. I think we broke a record. So super excited and thankful to be here. I appreciate it. And your fans are great, because I got some nice emails too from people telling me that I sound smart. I love when people lie to me on the internet. It makes me feel good about myself.
And Owen, I have to say, I have not missed Americans until talking to you. I've kind of forgotten. I've forgotten stuff a little bit.
Hey, don't forget you're married out there, okay? I know you got 2 lovely children.
Remember, we're ugly white people. You're fine.
Hey, I can give you a kid all year round 10. That's one thing I'm offering. You know, if you're looking for a third, you know what I mean? But I appreciate it.
All right, cool. Thank you very much to all 3 of you. If the lovely listening audience wants to support this here show, you can do so at patreon.com/the Phileas Club. A number of you guys and gals do that already, but if you think that this show does something right, brings you a little something to your daily life and intellectual life, then maybe you would consider giving away one or a couple of your hard-earned dollars at patreon.com/the Phileas Club. You can also go to iTunes and leave a review, just like Coco22 from the UK of Great Britain and Northern Ireland did. He said, critical listening. This podcast is where politics need to be. We need to have people talking more openly and with the freedom that they do on this podcast. This is critical listening for anyone who has even the mildest interest in politics. Thank you very much, Coco22. We do try to provide a variety of opinions. I don't say all opinions are represented because I'm not sure, sometimes you go too much to the extreme and it's just listening to all people for the sake of it. But if you listen to the show, you know that we have not just a bunch of liberal, bleeding heart liberals like we are on this episode. And the show, I think, works in that way. So if you think so as well, as I said, patreon.com/the Phileas Club. For me, it's not Patrick on Twitter and on Facebook. And you can find this show at FrenchSpin.com if you want to go comment about what we said and what we discussed. If you have different opinions and you want to come and have a discussion, you can do so there. We're very happy you listened, and we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks, probably for a special, and if not, in a month for a regular episode. Talk to you then. Bye.
And Marlene, thank you for not telling me you listened to me before, because I would have been too nervous.
I had a feeling, because I've listened to you that much that I figured that out.
Gosh, she doesn't like to know that anyone knows her voice.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I appreciate you holding that back. So thank you.
I'm sorry I ruined your Wonder Woman thunder. I heard it in your voice. You're like, Owen, but the love of women, I know. But
no, I think it was perfect. And you know what? That was with the inclusion of your daughter. You're completely legitimate, 10 times more legitimate to talk about this than me. So, like the actual women on the show are probably 20 times more legitimate, and you're 10 times.
Once we've seen it. And
that was the worst thing. I wanted her to be more excited about it, and she was just like, okay, like, yeah. Because again, the same things I saw, she saw too, because she's educated in the way things are supposed to be. Yeah. And I've seen her way more hype about, like I said, like Scarlett Johansson or other things than this movie, which was just centered around women. She's just like, I
really think, I don't know that it's going to be the case, but I really think that this is one of the things where a generational shift is going to fix a lot of these things. And when we are grandparents and we talk about these things, and our generation says stupid stuff, our children and our grandchildren's generation is going to look at us and think, that's just grandpa. He says weird stuff sometimes, like we sometimes listen to our grandparents and go like, or weird racist Uncle Al or whatever. It's like, it's a different generation.
They're all called Al though.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Right.
It's strange.
And they're always at my Thanksgiving dinner for some reason.
Well, all that stuff just takes time. By the time we're old, there are going to be so many transgender poly, he, she, they, he's that people are just going to have to be more accepting of everything. Like I tell people all the time, it just takes time for that old regiment to die out so they can't influence as much as they do. Yeah. So.
Well, either way, I really want to hear from Wendy and Marlene what they thought about Wonder Woman, and like completely honest opinions. If you thought it wasn't that big a deal, I'll be crushed, but I want to know. So please let me know when you've seen it.
All right. I'll do it in America where it's affordable, and then I will let you know.
Right. $27 is a lot. That's like New York money.
Is it really $25?
In my tiny little town. It's so
crazy.
A brand new movie. So if you wait a little while, it gets a little cheaper. But
because even here in Finland, it's 15. And
it's around 15 euros here too.
Yeah.
Wow. In America, it's $12, and then we have $5 Tuesdays. If you wait till Tuesday, the movie's only $5.
I'm doing that. Here's the thing. I want them to make money for a woman's film, but look at me. How do I do this the cheapest way possible?
America.